Hey, welcome everyone to the Emotional Man Daily Live Stream and Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be talking about assumptions. And so I want to start off sharing a story or kind of something that I've experienced before um, in just household chores. And so, how many of you, when you look at your, the what you do in the house, think that the chore or task you normally do is historically something that one of the genders would do? For example, is it normally what the man does, or is it normally what the woman does? For example, let's say I'm taking out the trash. So in our house, I generally take out the trash. And it'd be very easy for me to say, why am I always the one taking out the trash? Isn't that a little sexist? Now, I want to stop here and just do kind of emotional check. When I said that, what came up for you? Did you feel defensive, angry, confused, conflicted? Were you, agreeing with me? Like, oh yeah, that's what I do. That is sexist, or whatever it may be. So now the issue though is if I bring that up with my wife, I'm making several key assumptions. If I come up to her and say, "Hey, hon, I think it's a little sexist that I'm always the one bringing out the trash," I'm making the assumption that she thinks that bringing out the trash is the man's job. And if I proceed with that, I'm kind of accusing her, saying, like, "This is what I think you believe, and therefore I'm upset with it." Now, you know what they say about assumptions? Never make them. Now, I'm actually gonna scale that back a bit. Just make sure that the assumptions you are making are serving you and are beneficial. So, for example, if I proceed with this, making the assumption that she thinks that moving the trash is a man's job, and I accuse her of that, what's likely to happen? A, she may be like, "Oh, well, yeah, it is. That's just what my dad did. So therefore, that's what you did." Or, "Well, you're the one that volunteered to take it out." Or it could be like, "No, that's not at all." She become upset, defensive that I'm accusing her of, being sexist or whatever. There's so many different ways that this could go down. And when we make assumptions about other people's intent, especially when we're already upset, it can create a lot of conflict. I actually experienced this recently with some comments on one of my podcast posts. I made some assumptions about the intent of one of the people who was commenting, and it kind of drove some conflict. If I had just taken a step back and approached it with more curiosity, I thought I knew enough about the context and interplay between what was happening to make some judgment calls, but in reality, I was still making a lot of assumptions, and it brewed conflict. So, if the assumptions that we're making are, if the thoughts are leading us to feel angry, feeling defensive, feeling like we need to attack someone, feeling aggressive, that is a red flag. Because whenever we approach someone, especially with that energy, it's going to immediately bring up barriers, bring up defensive mechanisms, cause people to kind of move into that fight or flight mode. And so these assumptions generally don't serve us because it's going to lead to conflict. And just not just conflict, I'm talking about anger, defensiveness. It's not going to create connection. It's going to actually create disconnection. So what are some assumptions that we could make? What are some assumptions that would be beneficial in our relationships, especially family relationships, and even our relationships at work? What are some assumptions that could really help us connect with others? Now, reading Dr. Becky, I forget her last name. She's the one that wrote Good Inside. One of the ones I love that she recommends that parents do is, she calls it MGI, most generous interpretation. We approach people believing that they have the intent to do good and that they mean the best by us and that they generally intend to be positive people, that they're intending to do their best, provide their best. And what does that do? How does that shift the way we approach people? For me, I have found that if I believe that my wife is doing her very best for me, I'm much more likely to approach the situation with curiosity. If what I'm seeing is a result of someone's best intention, what does this mean? And so a lot of the questions, so for example, let's take the trash. Instead of jumping to the conclusion that I know how she thinks about it, I could begin with the framework. My wife intends the best for me, and she is trying to be the best person she can possibly be. So then I could go up beyond the like, well, what does she think about the trash? It's just a very neutral statement. What does Melissa think about the chore of the trash? And I can just approach it there in a neutral, totally curious, genuine position. And what I would find out is that my wife just dislikes taking out the trash, much like I really dislike loading the dishwasher. I hate the way it feels. I hate the way it smells. And it seems like when I put dishes into the washer, even though I think like it should be the most efficient way, but it always seems like I'm doing it wrong. And so I take out the trash because I actually just like walking outside. I sit inside my office all day. So taking out the trash gives me the excuse to go out and walk outside. And she knows I dislike loading the dishwasher, so she'll load the dishwasher and I take out the trash. And there's nothing about, well, this, she's the woman in the household, so that's what she should do, or I'm the man in the household, so that's what I should do. And coming with curiosity with our employees, even if they've, especially when they've made a mistake, coming in and understanding, asking questions, it leads to dialogue. The dialogue leads to understanding. Understanding leads to connection. And it's in that connection that we find the ability to resolve problems in a win-win scenario, in a way that moves us forward in learning and growing as people. So I would love to hear from all of you, if any of you are like to comment, is how do you approach these kind of issues? Issues being times where you feel like what you're doing in the household is unfair, or you're upset that someone isn't doing a task that you generally find yourself having to do. And how do you feel when you approach it with a space of kind of a thought that generates curiosity? How does that affect your behavior, and how does it affect your results? Let me know in your comments. Love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone. That is the Emotional Man Daily Live Stream. I look forward to chatting with you all later. Take courage, and I'll see you again later.